172 years.
That's some tough bastards who can fight for that long. Not even have someone to die.
Yeah. Imagine being in the longest European war and never losing a single citizen or civilian or member of your military in that conflict. That's what Denmark can say. Hey everybody, you're listening to What Are You Doing in Denmark, the podcast that helps you make Denmark make sense. My name is Derek Hartman, and today we are diving into a little bit of Danish history that may be fun facts that you don't know. And I am joined to tell the story by Anders Morgenstierne.
Can I chip in?
Yeah, please.
Nobody knows this.
Yeah.
You said maybe they don't know it, like, what am I doing in Denmark? I was born here and I don't know this, so nobody's going to know it.
So we're going to go into a story that nobody in Denmark would know about.
No.
And Anders is going to help me out, and I'll be telling him this story possibly for the first time. I guess definitely for the first time.
Yeah.
Starting where we would have a little base of knowledge. So the early 19th century, there was this guy in Europe called Napoleon.
I heard about
Heard of him?
Yes. Mr. Bonaparte.
Yeah, Mr. Bonaparte was doing a little scheming, doing a little jiving, and he basically wanted to sort of reshape Europe, particularly under French dominance. We often hear today, oh, Denmark's a small country. Yes, this is true. It was true then too, but sort of like today, Denmark still played a very significant role in European affairs and, had some strategic importance, particularly to Napoleon, and that kind of got Denmark swept up in these plans.
Because of the geographically placed, or
yeah, excellent. Yeah,
something with ships passing through.
Absolutely. So in really two ways. No, that's absolutely right, and I think that's probably what all listeners are thinking too. Like, if you know anything about Danish geography, which you probably do if you're listening to this podcast, then you know that Denmark really controls and historically has controlled some of the major shipping pathways into the Baltic Sea, so some major ports. And shipping has always been, and maritime control has always been a big part of Danish economy, the Danish sort of strategic military positioning. And even today in things like Maersk, think of like Maersk, a big shipping company, that is a Danish company. So this has always kind of been the importance of Denmark.
It's our thing.
Yeah,
it's our thing.
Yeah, something that Denmark excels in, right?
Yeah,
so we've always been sort of controlling the seas, and this strategic location made it important. So Napoleon was trying to inflict something on Europe called the continental system. So it was a trade blockade that they were using to sort of cripple the economy of what they considered their biggest rival at the time, Great Britain.
Yeah. Also heard about them.
They do come into play in particular, and this will lead to a situation where Denmark finds itself in the longest war that has occurred in Europe that lasted 172 years. It all begins with Napoleon, the continental system, and the fact that Denmark is trying to kind of play both sides, right? So they want to keep trade open. They are benefiting from sort of controlling these seaways. And it's beneficial to Denmark to have Britain using these waterways, paying tolls, and continuing to trade. Denmark also trades with Great Britain and with France, and that eventually comes to a head. Like, Napoleon is eventually like, I don't know about this. We need to pull Denmark a little bit closer. Denmark resists and wants to remain neutral, but it becomes too much actually for Britain.
Yeah, but Denmark were... they were lying up with France, weren't they?
Yeah, Denmark did ally with France, but it was almost as a matter of last resort. Okay. So while they're trying to sort of like maintain this neutral position, sort of literally geographically, who wouldn't want that? And that's sort of a theme. They don't want to get crushed by a bigger neighbor. They sort of play all the sides, a lot of diplomacy. And eventually Britain is trying to just cut off Napoleon's empire. They took some drastic action. So in 1807, the Navy launched a preemptive strike on Copenhagen. That's where most of the naval ships of Denmark were. They just bombard Copenhagen. They bombard the capital. And they seize as much as they can of the Danish naval fleet and sail what's left back to London, I presume, to just keep it from falling into French hands. I don't know if you've heard the term Copenhagenization.
Copenhagenization.
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
Yeah. So it's basically the idea that you are going to preemptively attack an enemy so that they lose any strategic advantage if they were to go to war with you in the future.
And people use that all over.
Yeah, I mean, it's all over the streets. You hear
shitty. That's so. But like, okay, nowadays, let's say U.S. could Copenhagenization somewhere all over the world just to like, which they probably do.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's probably been a little bit of that.
Copenhagenization.
Yeah.
Okay.
So now you have another word for it if you want to make it sound. Yeah, so Copenhagenization, not a great word, but the legacy of this bombing and raiding of Copenhagen that Britain did in 1807. So this left Denmark with basically no choice. So like their navy is gone, and they're like, hey, we didn't want any trouble anyway, but now the only thing we can do is go towards France, right? Like we need somebody to kind of,
help us.
you know, to align with, to help us, because we've lost our navy. That was their main military power, and so they had to join Napoleon's coalition. That was in 1808. They're hoping that like by doing so, that'll shield Denmark from future attacks. And
of course.
Sadly, they did find themselves in this alliance with Napoleon then. Yeah. So then naturally, Sweden, of course, aligns with Great Britain, as you would expect. And now things are sort of taking shape where Denmark's in this new alliance. It also includes Norway. It also includes the Confederation of the Rhine, so a lot of the now German states. And there's just sort of this reluctant alliance, please don't take us over, Napoleon, kind of thing going on for Denmark. So meanwhile, Spain is sort of coerced into this alliance as well. And this is where we start to see where this war is
LA with Spain.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound too bad.
They're sort of coerced into an alliance with France as well, but they weren't as happy about it. So Napoleon takes his brother and puts him on the Spanish throne, and that doesn't go super well. So Spain kind of is very resentful of this. They want their country back, and especially in the south, in Andalusia, they really resent having this foreigner from France put on the throne, and wouldn't make me too happy. Basically, there's this town in Andalusia in southern Spain called Huescar.
Huescar,
yeah, probably mispronouncing that, but it's probably better than my Danish.
So am I.
So Huescar. Race car, yeah. So they decide that they are not going to just sit there and take it from Napoleon. They wanted to symbolically, have some kind of way of taking a stand. The thinking is it would have been too bold for their leaders to declare war on France itself. So who do they decide to declare war on?
I hope it's not Denmark.
Yeah. So it was Denmark. So we see where we're going. So they declare war on Denmark because they think if you're getting in bed with my enemy, then we're going to declare war on you. We're not going to declare war on France because, this guy's brother is... on the throne, he might just come and crush us, but we'll declare war on Denmark and just pick apart, declare war on your alliance. Even if it was mostly symbolic, they did see Denmark as a member of this alliance, as somebody who was complicit with Napoleon. So with a stroke of a pen, they officially went to war with Denmark, very far away.
They weren't going to be there immediately the day after.
Yeah, they knew it wasn't a big risk of retaliation, at least initially. So they were like, "Hey, yeah, we're gonna do that." So they start this peculiar sort of one-sided conflict that, well, eventually history just forgot about.
Wow.
So
wow.
So Huescar formally declares war on Denmark. The situation on the ground was sort of laughably non-confrontational. There's no battle. They never sail to Denmark. We don't know that the Danes were even aware of this declaration of war.
That's nuts.
And no troops are deployed. Basically, Denmark, it's distant. It's not really even involved in any of the Spanish campaigns of Napoleon. It's just sort of, Denmark was basically like, okay, we can't be neutral, but just everybody just stop fucking bombing us. Great Britain did bomb Denmark one more time. More Copenhagenization, I guess.
Yeah.
But the Spanish never did. The people of Huescar never did.
Oh my God. Yeah, okay.
So nothing else happened. In fact, we're, again, not even sure that Copenhagen was even aware or that Denmark was even aware of this declaration.
You see how, like, that's how you make a country that, like, want to, like, focus inwards.
Yes.
You know?
Exactly.
When you get bombed so hard that other countries start going to war with you just to do something. Yeah.
Yeah. And you don't even necessarily realize it.
Yeah.
Because like, from the Danish position, they were more concerned with Sweden.
I'm going to bring this up next time I meet a Spain.
Yes.
Especially from Andalusia, I'm going to be like, just so you know, I know what you're up to.
I know what you did.
I know what you are. Like, and your ancestors have not blood, but something on their hands.
Yeah, not blood on their hands. But it wasn't that long ago that it ended either.
Declaration of peace.
Yeah, that took a while. So for Huescar, they're luckily not even really in the sights or the crosshairs of Denmark. Denmark's more concerned with Sweden, with Great Britain, who are much closer, much more strategically able to inflict harm. Great Britain already has twice they bombed Copenhagen during this period of the Napoleonic Wars.
Yeah.
And Sweden's not too far away. So yeah, eventually we do know that sort of Denmark has a tendency to say look inward and build up what they can and not worry as much about fighting off who's around them. But in this case, that sort of was the benefit, I guess, of Huescar. So they sort of have this, solidarity. They want Spain to fight off Napoleon, so they declare this war that nobody really is even aware of. And this continued. This town in Spain, had 172 years of war with Denmark. So for almost 2 centuries, this so-called war went on unnoticed. We don't know that Denmark ever even knew.
No.
The town potentially just forgot. Once Napoleon's brother was off the throne, once the warring period, and I guess what they considered an occupation sort of went away, they just sort of forgot about it. And it sat quietly until eventually they're doing some work in the town archives.
Holy shit, we're at war.
Yeah.
Did you guys know we're in war right now?
That's basically what happened. Like the history of Spain was not as calm as some other countries. They had civil wars, they had independence movements, they were shifting governments, nationalism, fascism. So this conflict, it naturally kind of fell through the cracks. And as the decades passed, Denmark really just forgot about the whole thing, if they even knew about it in the first place. So then 20th century rolls around and historians are sort of like looking through different archives of this town of Huescar, and they stumble upon these documents. They're like, well, what is this? And then they realize there's an official declaration of war and 0 peace treaty. Never got around to that.
Brutal.
Yeah. So obviously it kind of sparked some curiosity, like how could we be at war still and nobody even knew about it? But instead of being worried or outraged, they basically had a laugh. I guess they of course
good.
It's this was then in
it's not a real, it's a Danish war.
It's a Danish war, right? Yeah,
that should be a way of saying, like, a Danish war. I like that way more than Copenhagenization.
Copenhagenization.
Just to have one of those Danish wars.
One of those Danish wars where we don't really fight.
Yeah.
We just sort of forget about it. So that happened, for 172 years. So then finally, in 1981, the news kind of got out. There's this war, no casualties, no battles, no awareness. And it was just too strange not to celebrate. So they decide that kind of once this gets out, it's now 1981. So within a year of finding these documents, this declaration of war. And of course, the things in Spain have settled down a bit and are a little bit more normal politically. They have good relations with Denmark. So the mayor and Denmark's ambassador to Spain, they came together and they signed a formal peace treaty.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Farther than that, it's kind of nice. So in like the sort of spirit of the war, the ceremony was very festive. There was a lot of music, a lot of Danish and Spanish food.
What you get in a Danish war?
Well, if you lose the war, you have to eat the Danish food.
Yeah. True.
But if you win, you get tapas and and some vino.
Sangria,
Yeah.
wine.
Yeah.
Probably drink water as well.
Yeah, I was gonna say, probably some water. But yeah, you get tapas, sangria, and some herring.
Yeah.
And maybe some snaps.
Sangria and herring, that's what you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they did some celebrations, and then they celebrated the end of this non-conflict with flying the Dannebrog in Spain and Huescar, and the town sort of embraced this unlikely connection.
It's quite cute.
Yeah. Yeah, it all ended well. And for the people of the town, it sort of just became like an odd footnote. However, recently, they continued to mark the day where the peace treaty was signed.
Cute.
Every year. So, yeah. So for over 40 years, they only missed during COVID. They do a little celebration of when the war officially ended, which was November 11th, 1981.
All right.
And
the ambassador comes by then? No.
The mayor and Denmark's ambassador to Spain, and they have sort of like, it's an excuse for a party. I think Danes and the Spanish are...
Is that the date you have tattooed on
I didn't know about this until just recently.
I didn't know about it until 15 minutes ago.
Yeah. Somebody emailed us and said, oh, did you know about this? In November, and said, yeah, you should talk about this. And then I went down the rabbit hole. It's really interesting. Some other cool things is that the town has really embraced it. And of course, they have they wanted a sister town in Denmark.
Yeah.
You know how like a lot of...
we got lucky.
So it was Kolding.
Kolding.
Yes.
Wow, so cute.
Thank you for saving my pronunciation. So Kolding is now the sister city. And every year they do a student exchange as well.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
So, see, Napoleon, I guess, wasn't... all bad.
No,
I mean, technically,
British, not all bad. No,
yeah. I mean, the British bombed the hell out of the city, Copenhagenized.
But we got a Danish war.
But
with sangria
and look, I mean, who else can say that they, besides this one town in Spain and all of Denmark, can say that they have been involved in the longest European war in history?
Exactly.
172 years.
That's some tough bastards who can fight for that long.
100 years war.
Not even have someone to die.
Yeah. Yes. Imagine being in the longest European war and never losing a single citizen or civilian or member of your military in that conflict. That's what Denmark can say. So there it is. That's the story of Denmark's long war with Huescar, Spain. And the happily ever after that we get to enjoy now with some sangria and snaps.
Yeah, let's focus on that.
Yeah, exactly. Not all the other... Look, if they can put 172 years of history behind us, then that surely there's hope for the rest of the world. Thank you for
thanks for telling me. Thanks for you live, you learn, apparently.
Exactly. And where can people find more of you, Anders? I know we've had you here before. We'll put those episodes in the show notes and description. But to find you personally,
you can find me all over Copenhagen when there's stand-up. If you want to practice your Danish and you're into football, soccer, you can listen to my podcast Drømmeklubben.
Yes.
You can find me at I put up everything where I perform on Instagram on my Anders Morgenstierne.
Wonderful. Yeah. So we'll have all those links in the show notes and description so people can check your podcast. Listen, if you're not listening to a Danish podcast and you're trying to learn Danish, a great thing to do. You can listen to Anders, and we'll also have your Instagram so people can find your stand-up and hopefully come see you live.
Yeah, I would love that. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. And thank you all for listening and watching. Hi.